On Sumbawa, April 1815, a seemingly idyllic existence unfolded, unaware of the impending doom that lurked beneath the surface. The island, a jewel in the Indonesian archipelago, basked in the tropical sun, its people living in harmony with nature. Life was peaceful beneath the shadow of Mount Tambora, a majestic peak that dominated the landscape. Villages nestled in its foothills, their inhabitants living simple lives, connected to the rhythms of the land and sea. The mountain was seen as a provider, a source of life and sustenance for the communities that thrived in its shadow. It was a constant presence, a silent guardian watching over their daily lives. Its slopes, covered in lush vegetation, were incredibly fertile, providing rich soil for agriculture. The volcanic soil nurtured a vibrant ecosystem, supporting a diverse range of plant and animal life. Villages thrived at its base, their traditional houses blending seamlessly into the natural environment. The communities were close-knit, their lives intertwined with the mountain and each other. Fishermen cast nets in the turquoise waters, their traditional boats bobbing gently on the waves. The sea provided a bounty of fish, a vital source of food and income for the coastal communities. Farmers tended rice paddies, their terraced fields a testament to generations of agricultural knowledge. The rice paddies shimmering in the sunlight were the heart of the island's food supply, and children played under a brilliant sky, their laughter echoing through the villages. Life was simple, peaceful, and seemingly untouched by the troubles of the outside world. For years, the mountain had rumbled and steamed, a reminder of the powerful forces at play beneath the surface. These were normal signs of volcanic activity, a part of the island's natural rhythm. But such signs were common in this volcanic land, and the people had grown accustomed to the occasional tremors and plumes of smoke. They saw it as a natural part of their environment, not as a cause for alarm. No one suspected the danger building beneath their feet, the immense pressure that was slowly reaching a critical point. The mountain held a secret, a cataclysmic potential that would soon be unleashed upon the world. Oral tradition held no memory of disaster, no tales of past eruptions or warnings of future cataclysms. The collective memory of the people was focused on the present, on the daily struggles and joys of life. The mountain was simply part of life, an integral part of their identity and their connection to the land. It was a source of pride, a symbol of their resilience and their ability to thrive in a challenging environment. On April 5th, a thunderous blast shattered the calm, a violent eruption that shook the island to its core. The sound reverberated through the air, a deafening roar that signaled the beginning of the end. Echoing for hundreds of kilometers, the blast was heard on neighboring islands, a terrifying reminder of the power of nature. People miles away felt the ground tremble beneath their feet. Villagers watched in awe and fear, their faces etched with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. They had never witnessed anything like this before, and they struggled to understand what was happening. As ash clouds billowed from the summit, blotting out the sun and casting a dark shadow over the island. The sky, once a brilliant blue, was now filled with a menacing gray haze. For 5 days the volcano rumbled, a constant reminder of the impending disaster. The earth trembled, and the air crackled with an eerie energy, the air thick with sulfur, ash settling on every surface, coating everything in a fine layer of gray. The once vibrant landscape was now shrouded in a pall of volcanic dust. Yet, daily routines continued, albeit under increasingly difficult conditions. The people of Sumbawa were resilient, determined to maintain a sense of normalcy in the face of the growing threat. The scale of the threat unimaginable, the true extent of the danger hidden beneath the surface. They could not fathom the magnitude of the eruption that was about to unfold. Beneath the surface, a vast chamber of magma, a seething cauldron of molten rock, was reaching its breaking point. The pressure was building, the earth groaning under the strain, strained against the earth, ready to burst with unimaginable force. The magma was poised to unleash a cataclysm unlike any the world had ever seen. The stage was set for a disaster of epic proportions. The final moments of tranquility slipped by, unnoticed by thousands, their lives about to be irrevocably changed. These were the last breaths of peace before the storm. That evening, the first major explosion ripped through the sky, a deafening roar that echoed across the island. The eruption was gaining momentum, its power growing exponentially. Signaled the end of an era, the beginning of a new chapter in the history of the world, one marked by devastation and loss. The old world was about to be swept away. The world was changing, its climate about to be altered in ways that would be felt for years to come. The eruption would have far-reaching consequences, impacting societies and ecosystems across the globe. But no one could comprehend what was coming, the sheer scale of the destruction that was about to be unleashed. They were blissfully unaware of the horrors that awaited them. The mountain, once a silent guardian, a symbol of stability and peace, was about to transform into a force of unimaginable destruction. Its protective embrace would soon turn into a deadly grip, was about to unleash devastation on a scale that would forever be etched in the annals of history. The world was about to witness the full power of a volcanic eruption. The people of Sumbawa stood on the brink, their lives hanging in the balance, unaware of the cataclysm that was about to engulf them. They were about to become victims of one of nature's most violent displays, unaware their paradise would soon become a wasteland, a barren landscape scarred by the forces of nature. The lush greenery would be replaced by ash and desolation. The countdown to catastrophe had begun, the clock ticking relentlessly towards the moment of ultimate destruction. The fate of Sumbawa was sealed. The sky darkened, the air grew heavy with the stench of sulfur, and the ground trembled with increasing intensity. The signs were all there, but few understood their true meaning. And the mountain's warnings intensified, a symphony of rumbles, explosions, and ashfall that heralded the coming storm. Nature was screaming, but its cries went unheeded. The fate of the island was sealed in those last quiet days, the calm before the storm that would forever change the course of history. These were the final moments of peace, before the world was plunged into darkness. The greatest volcanic eruption in recorded history was about to begin, a cataclysm that would reshape the world and leave an indelible mark on the human story. The year is 1815. Europe is recovering from the Napoleonic Wars and life continues as it always has. But nature has a surprise in store. On April 10, 1815, the earth began to stir. Mount Tambora, a towering volcano on the Indonesian island of Sumbawa, awoke with unimaginable force. It was a force the world hadn't seen in millennia. 3 colossal columns of fire and ash, spewing molten rock and superheated gas, merged into a single monstrous pillar, a dark monument to nature's raw power. This terrifying plume pierced the stratosphere, injecting millions of tons of ash and sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere. The mountain, unable to contain the immense pressure within, tore itself apart in a cataclysmic explosion. The sound, a deafening roar of unimaginable magnitude, echoing across continents, a stark reminder of the Earth's volatile nature. Eyewitnesses at sea, hundreds of miles away, saw liquid fire engulf the peak, a terrifying spectacle of destruction and raw energy. The roar was heard over 2,600 kilometers away, a distance equivalent to traveling from New York to Denver. The sound was so intense that it was mistaken for cannon fire in distant lands, causing widespread alarm and confusion. For those nearby, living in the shadow of the once dormant giant, it was the end of the world as they knew it. The sky turned black, blotted out by the sheer volume of ash and debris ejected into the atmosphere. A hurricane of ash and pumice swept down the mountainsides, a pyroclastic flow of unimaginable heat and speed, incinerating everything in its path. Villages and forests vanished in an instant, swallowed by the relentless surge of volcanic material. The air itself became deadly, thick with toxic gases and suffocating ash, making each breath a struggle. Pumice stones, some the size of fists, rained from the sky, a relentless bombardment of volcanic rock. These pumice stones smashed roofs and injured anyone exposed to the open sky, adding to the chaos and devastation. Buildings, unable to withstand the accumulating weight of the ash, collapsed under the immense pressure. People were trapped inside, buried alive beneath the suffocating blanket of ash. Tsunamis, triggered by the eruption and subsequent caldera collapse, battered the coasts of surrounding islands. These massive waves surged inland, dragging entire settlements into the sea, leaving nothing but wreckage and despair. There was no escape. The forces unleashed were simply too powerful. Destruction came from sky, land, and ocean, a trifecta of devastation that overwhelmed everything in its path. The eruption continued for days, a relentless assault on the landscape and its inhabitants. The sun was hidden behind a thick veil of ash, plunging the region into an unnatural darkness. The island was buried under a meter of ash, a gray shroud that suffocated all life. Survivors, dazed and disoriented, stumbled through the darkness, their faces covered in ash. They were desperately searching for loved ones in a ruined world, a landscape transformed beyond recognition. Mount Tambora, once majestic and life-giving, a symbol of the island's beauty, was now a gaping wound in the earth, a testament to the destructive power of nature unleashed. But the eruption's immediate, deadly impact was only the beginning of a global catastrophe. The world would never be the same as the events of Tambora reverberated across the globe, ushering in a year without a summer. The human cost on Sumbawa was staggering. The kingdom of Tambora was obliterated. 10,000 people, their culture and history erased in hours. Pekat suffered the same fate, entire societies vanished. Survivors faced poisoned land and water, crops destroyed, livestock dead. Starvation set in immediately, disease followed. Ash-laden air caused deadly respiratory illnesses. Lieutenant Owen Phillips found skeletal survivors begging for food, bodies unburied. 12,000 died from the eruption and tsunamis. Famine and disease claimed at least 80,000 more. 92,000 lives lost. History's deadliest volcanic eruption. Once thriving communities became a silent, gray wasteland. The local catastrophe was almost beyond comprehension. Tambora's devastation didn't end on Sumbawa, it changed the world. The eruption hurled 100 cubic kilometers of ash and rock into the stratosphere. A global veil of dust and sulfur dioxide formed, spreading around the planet. Sulfuric acid droplets reflected sunlight, cooling the earth from above. At first the effects were subtle, strange, vivid sunsets painted the skies. Artists like J.M.W. Turner unknowingly captured these eerie colors. But the real consequence was a dramatic drop in global temperatures up to 3 degrees Celsius. Weather patterns shifted, growing seasons shortened, and monsoons faltered. The climate's delicate balance was shattered. The world was plunged into cold and hardship, all from a single mountain's fury. The global sunshade was a harbinger of disaster. Humanity was about to face the year without a summer. In 1816, something extraordinary, something truly unsettling occurred. Summer, as people knew it, simply never came. The sun rose, the days passed, but the warmth, the life-giving embrace of summer was absent. North America endured a year so brutally cold it became known as 1800 and froze to death, a testament to the relentless, unforgiving winter that gripped the continent. It was a year etched in the memories of those who lived through it, a year of hardship and survival. The growing season was repeatedly assaulted by devastating frosts in May, and bizarrely, snow in June, blanketing the landscape in a chilling reminder that nature was profoundly out of balance. Even more astonishing, rivers froze in July, a phenomenon unheard of during the summer months. Crops failed on a massive scale. The specter of famine loomed large, threatening entire communities with starvation. Europe too suffered under the weight of relentless cold and rain, a seemingly endless deluge that soaked the land and chilled the bones. Rivers, swollen by the incessant rains, flooded their banks, and the precious harvests were ruined, leaving fields of grain to rot in the waterlogged earth. The consequences were devastating, and famine gripped the continent. In Ireland, the staple potato crop, the lifeblood of the nation, failed completely. And as hunger weakened the population, typhus spread like wildfire, claiming tens of thousands of lives in a tragic and preventable disaster. In Switzerland, the situation became so dire that desperation drove people to eat whatever they could find, even moss and cats, just to survive. As food became scarce, grain prices soared to unprecedented heights, and driven by hunger and desperation, riots erupted in cities and towns across the continent. Governments, overwhelmed by the scale of the crisis, were largely powerless to provide relief or restore order. Even in distant China, the usual patterns were disrupted, and the vital monsoons failed to arrive, while in India, a devastating cholera pandemic began its deadly spread. Across the globe, the world's climate was unraveling in ways no one could understand, and no one, from the humblest farmer to the most learned scientist, knew why these catastrophic events were unfolding. Diaries and letters from the time are filled with accounts of despair, confusion, and a growing sense of dread. Families starved in silence, livelihoods vanished like smoke, leaving behind empty farms and shuttered businesses, and hope faded, replaced by a gnawing fear for the future. Many, struggling to make sense of the unprecedented disaster, saw it as divine punishment for the sins of humanity. The year without a summer was, in reality, Tambora's devastating legacy. A global crisis born not of divine wrath, but of the immense and terrifying power of a volcanic eruption. In the face of such overwhelming force, civilization's fragility was laid bare for all to see. Nature, in its raw and untamed power, had rewritten the rules of existence, leaving humanity to grapple with the consequences. The year without a summer left a deep mark on culture and innovation. In Switzerland, trapped by rain and cold, Mary Shelley dreamed up Frankenstein. The novel's darkness echoed the world's gloom. Artists like Turner painted vivid, unnatural skies. Tambora's dust immortalized in art. Crisis spurred invention. In Germany, the lack of horse feed inspired the creation of the first bicycle. Social unrest and famine drove mass migration, especially to America. Communities and governments were destabilized. The eruption's effects rippled through society, changing lives and cultures. Tambora's shadow stretched far beyond the volcano itself. It shaped art, literature, technology, and migration. The world was transformed by darkness, both literal and metaphorical. The legacy of Tambora was everywhere, if you knew where to look. To grasp Tambora's significance, consider its scale. The eruption was a VI7 10 times more powerful than Krakatoa, 100 times more than Mount St. Helens. Over 100 cubic kilometers of material were ejected, enough to bury the UK under 40 centimeters of ash. The eruption column soared 43 kilometers high, spreading its effects worldwide. The mountain lost its top third, replaced by a 6-kilometer-wide caldera. Tambora's power overwhelmed the planet's systems for years. Only a handful of eruptions in history compare. Its force reshaped landscapes and altered human history. Smaller eruptions devastate locally. Tambora changed the global climate. It is a humbling reminder of Earth's hidden power. The eruption's legacy is a warning. Tambora stands alone in the modern era. Its impact was truly planetary. Despite its scale, Tambora is largely forgotten. Ask about famous eruptions, and few mention Tambora. Its remoteness and the era's slow communication kept it out of the headlines. News traveled by ship, arriving months late and incomplete. The link between the eruption and global disaster was unknown. People blamed God or bad luck, not a distant volcano. By Krakatoa's time, telegraphs spread news instantly, making it famous. Tambora's story was lost in obscure reports and faded memories. History remembers the well-connected, not always the most powerful. Tambora's story is a warning from the past. It shows how a single event can plunge the world into chaos. Today, our interconnected world is even more vulnerable. A Tambora-scale eruption now would disrupt food, travel, and economies worldwide. We monitor supervolcanoes, but the threat remains. Understanding Tambora helps us prepare for the future. Its ash is a permanent reminder of nature's power. The lesson history is shaped not just by people, but by the Earth itself.